What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? You're back with your guys, JP, Caleb, and Quentin on Chiefs Focus Live. What's up, fellas?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
I'm good, man.
And
smoldering.
training camp injuries are piling up here
Yes, they
in
are.
Kansas City and around the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's 111 degrees here today, so.
I think it was only a measly 103 today.
Is that your heat index or is that your real temperature?
That has to be heat index.
Yeah. This is real temp. This is real temp. So when you're standing in the heat, it's like in the sun, it feels like it's about 125. What's up, Scott? Chiefs Kingdom. We got everybody in the joint. Everybody's going to be joining in quick. Let's talk about the first thing that everybody on Twitter was talking about, and that's the Joe Burrow injury.
You mean X?
Yeah, X. I got to tell you that, Philip, what's up, buddy? That, to me, looked like an Achilles tear. And from what I've heard, one reporter on the field said he heard the pop. And if anybody remembers, Eric Berry and his calf injury that immediately turned into an Achilles injury and out for a long period of time, that is kind of the norm. When you feel it in your calf first, it's usually your Achilles. And the way he stepped off of that, I will say, and especially somebody saying they heard the pop, that's what got me the most. Is this is a reputable reporter that said he heard the pop, and that's when Joe Burrow started limping. And sometimes non-contact injuries are worse than contact injuries. So,
What's weird is that he was wearing that compression sleeve on that leg already, and he doesn't normally wear that compression sleeve.
Yeah.
Officially, it's been reported as a calf strain. The team hasn't updated anything past that, so we'll see what happens there. I don't want him to miss the NFL season. I want to see Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes throw down again.
Yeah.
But that would be a crazy, crazy injury to have if Joe Burrow misses, any significant time because of a calf strain or anything worse than that. I mean, that would be a crazy way to start the NFL season.
Absolutely. You know what's funny is that there's been some kind of high-profile guys on Twitter saying,
X.
On X. Sorry, I keep calling it Twitter. It's now X.
It's going to take a while to get used to that.
Yeah. Saying, this sucks for Joe Burrow and it's bad for the game and everything. But, there's fans and some of their teammates are so insufferable that it's almost like karma kicking them in the butt. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that what I feel like it is that over the last 2 years, he's taken an ignorant amount of hits. He's had a lot of lower leg hits, and he's not a mobile quarterback like most quarterbacks are. He's mobile, but he's not – I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not Tom Brady and Peyton Manning that's got bricks for feet, but he's also not the most mobile guy. And once you start piling up leg injuries, especially lower leg injuries, then things start to just kind of continue on that path. But, I mean, he's been the most sacked quarterback over the last 2 seasons. So,
I mean, when you look at the whole situation, to me, it looks like an Achilles injury because he grabbed his calf first, and we've seen multiple players, Derek Johnson, AB, tear their Achilles right in front of us. I mean, that's what I always remember them doing, kind of grabbing the calf muscle. It just seems really weird. I remember one time whenever the Chiefs, it was the last year Alex Smith was here and they were playing the Texans. And Chris Conley turns Achilles. And they got so close to the camera, they saw the Achilles snap and go up into his calf. So that's why I was wondering if that's possibly what happened. I'm not 100% sure. I hope that it's nothing major at all because I would love to see the Chiefs and Bengals go at it again. But that injury, it just doesn't seem right to me. It was a non-contact injury. As Quentin was saying, he was wearing compression sleeve. And if, like you were saying, if someone heard it snap, that means either he's going to be out for he's going to either be out for part of the season or for full of the season. I'm erring on the side of caution that the Bengals are not releasing everything yet until tomorrow, because there's no way you're running and then that happens, you go down and then not get up and start walking.
Well, they got to do all the tests and everything.
Yeah, they do all the tests. It just, to me, it seemed like, I'm thinking this is something worse. than what it is. And I see people all the time, and we're looking kind of the different reports. Everyone's saying different things. And I tell people all the time, whatever they put out first, they're not just going to go and say he tore his ACL or tore his Achilles just right there and then. They're going to go through a process. They're going to say he has a calf injury or he has a knee injury, and then they'll go down the list a day or two. I mean, I wouldn't really be surprised until we get an official diagnosis sometime tomorrow, earliest midday tomorrow or the afternoon, pushing in towards the night. Just the way the NFL has done things, the way his news gets out, I would not be surprised. You never know. We may get a late night report, but I highly doubt it. Just to me, honestly, when it looks like it, he has an Achilles injury. I don't want that to happen to him, but unfortunately, just the way it happened just looked very, very odd.
Hey, did you guys notice something? Did you look at the film, and did you notice that he took off because of the pressure that came from one particular player?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody saw that, but I watched it numerous times, and that pressure came from one particular player. So either their defensive line or their defensive lineman, edge, or tackle is extremely good, or it's a repeat of what we saw last year.
Mm-hmm.
But
well,
came from
we
OBJ.
will see what's going to happen. I mean, he went there for a reason, and it's going to be very, very interesting. If he's there, how? What did Philip say?
Philip said, "Yeah, I saw that too, JP."
Yeah, it is interesting. I hope that's not the case. Excuse me, but it looks like from what the pressure came from the left side. We don't know who the left tackle was there. We don't need to go into details. The reason why that player is no longer here, number one, a lot of money. Number two, other things that went on. So at the end of the day, we just hope Joe Burrow's all right. It does suck to see that happen, but it's just one of the things where those injuries will add up. And we're seeing players all over the league are falling down left and right. The Chiefs so far have been injury-free. We've had a retirement we'll get to in a little bit, but for the most part, the injuries have not hurt the Chiefs.
It's hurt. Kadarius Toney blew his knee.
Well, yeah.
Oh, my God, with the blow in his knee. He didn't blow his knee.
He tore his meniscus.
That was – all right. I'm not even going to argue about it. I'm not going to
That's what happened. There's nothing to argue about. That's what happened.
He didn't tear his – a shard of freaking cartilage ripped his meniscus a little bit. It stabbed it. It was laser surgery, in and out in 30 minutes.
Ding, ding, fight. Defend your side.
He's going to be fine, man. God.
Andy Reid got to the podium and said he tore his meniscus.
Well, Andy Reid and Andy Reid always says day by day with everybody, too, when he knows it's month by month or year by year. He didn't tear anything. He got a
when do we think he's
stab
coming
and
back?
got it fixed.
Is he coming back by week 1?
No.
Yes.
No way.
Absolutely.
Yes and no. Okay, we're split on this.
No, because here's the thing: is that even if he's available at that point, that's 7 weeks out. Why, if you're Kansas City, why would you push someone who's injury prone to come back?
You know what? I absolutely agree with you because you know why? Because they have Justin Ross and they have everybody they need to fill in those spots.
They need another receiver. They need another veteran in the locker room.
But
they need another veteran. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this DeAndre Hopkins thing is, looks better, and trying to get him, it would have been better and better.
But I was told I was a crazy person, Warren. Whatever. Moving on, we see John Ross retired. JP,
that was a weird retirement, Caleb.
You had some insight. You go and fill us in what you heard because that was very
weird, brother. Yeah, I guess from what I heard, he walked out on the field and said, "I'm done." And
was this in the middle of like a play? He was done.
No, it was the beginning of practice. Basically, he walked up. Well, I can't take that. I take that back. It was about 15 minutes into practice, and he just said, "I'm done."
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm quitting. I'm done. I'm retired." And he retired. And that was the end of the story. It's not the first time we've seen this happen.
Yeah, there's another receiver 2-3 years back to the same thing.
Exactly.
This is pre-code, I'm pretty sure. A receiver was out there. I think he got through the first day, I think, and medically retire or something.
What I was told is that he felt as if he didn't have a shot to make this team and most likely didn't have a shot to make any other team at this point. So he just wanted to get out while he could and move on with his life.
Dang.
So he retired. He, in fact, said, from what I guess he told, I'm not going to say who, but a reporter friend of mine, that he had seen the action from Bryce, from the other Ross.
Other guys, yeah.
everybody else, and he just didn't think it was going to happen, and he just didn't assume he'd be making the roster, which he probably wouldn't have. I mean, not when these guys are balling the way they are, and he didn't get any first team reps. When everybody else was, so honestly, the bulk of the reps, even before Tony, they even considered it, they already had it in the game plan to put Justin Ross, Richie.
There was film on that.
Rice. They were all going to work on the first team reps with Mahomes. So
I mean, when you look at John Ross, it's unfortunate he got drafted to the Bengals with terrible coach like Marvin Lewis. They didn't let rookies play. He got his growth got stunted there. Then he went to the Giants. His growth got stunted there. And then the Chiefs is kind of like, I think at that point maybe the desire for the game was lost. I mean, I can't blame him after being on two terrible organizations. It does suck because I was curious to see what he could do, especially with that 4.228 speed. But it's just one of those things where I don't know what to say. I mean, it comes to a point where some people realize they just don't want to do it anymore. I hope maybe he can come back the next year or two, maybe get some of his body to rest. I still just think he was like many other players are dealt a bad hand being put on these rosters that are no good and with coaches who do not know what they're doing. And I think that's for the detriment of the player where it really, really hurts him. Luckily, we haven't really seen those issues happen in Kansas City per se, as bad as it's gone to other teams. But he was a player. I was very curious to see what he was going to do in the NFL. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out.
Yeah. I mean, was it his fifth year or sixth year?
No, I think it was like his.
He was drafted. Wasn't he drafted right before Patrick?
Yeah,
Mahomes?
He was. Mm-hmm.
So it's his seventh. So it'd be his seventh. This would have been his seventh, I guess, maybe 8th year. 7th year, something like that. But anyway, regardless, I mean, the guy didn't get a chance to play, and you're right, Caleb. When you're on bad teams and you're with bad coaches, you don't get the chance to grow.
Yep.
And he didn't get that opportunity. So, hey, man, good luck to whatever he does in the future. I hope he was able to stock some money away and do something great. Really quick, I know you said you wanted another wide receiver. I put it out on Twitter today. We are bringing back another receiver.
Mm-hmm. Got Missouri State.
Yeah, We're bringing back Ty. What's up, Will? We're bringing back Ty. So I kind of wish it was another guy, but hey, it is.
I watched that guy's tape a little bit on YouTube, and he's a pretty good for FC West wide receiver. He has kind of reminds me of Jody Forson a little bit, but a little bit faster. I think if he makes it through the process and stuff, he could get a spot. I don't know. Obviously, the Chiefs saw something when they cut him the first time around and then brought him back this time. I don't know. Obviously, probably just a camp body. It will be interesting to see what he could do, though.
Yeah. We'll have to see. I have a feeling they're going to bring a couple guys back that they've cut the first time.
Yeah, you never know. The first game is it's not next week, but it's the week after that Sunday. So we're getting very, very close to training to the first training camp game.
Yeah, yeah. So, Quentin, what do you got up there? You're being awful quiet.
Oh well, I'm just sitting here thinking about if the wide receiver group, right, is going to be this injured moving into the beginning of the year. If you're Kansas City, I'm trying to think how many 13 personnel packages that we're going to see being run.
How many wide receivers do we have injured besides Tony?
Well, you've got Tony, one just retired, so you've got one less guy there. Okay. And you know that you're going to take, at some point, more injuries are going to happen. Maybe not to the extent of some of the injuries we previously discussed, but guys are going to get banged up. So how do you compensate for that? And, are we going to see more 13 personnel being run? Because last year it was talked about a lot how, the Chiefs are going to run out here with this, these big guy packages, and they didn't really run them. They ran it just a handful of times. So are we going to see it being introduced in the offense more?
I almost think it will, just because last year was more of a stepping stone, for the bigger wide receiver style that we haven't had the entire Andy Reid era, pretty much. So I feel like maybe this year it probably was going that way anyway. But I do feel like once they get their bearings and figure out what they need to do, they're going to bring a couple more players in just to fill some spots and make sure that, look, man, you can't have too many wide receivers in this offense.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't.
Well, JP, could you put Phillips' quote? Sorry, not his quote. His comment, the second most recent one. This is a great point. He says we are paying 5 wide receivers, MVS, Rice, Tony, Moore, Watson for the price of 1 D-Hop. We are fine, and we're not spending $13 million a year on D-Hop. Now, I think that's a good point. 5 players to $13 million. That's great. But the issue is this: you can only get so many players for only hundreds of thousands or less than millions of dollars, and then expecting to come up big if there's no experience. I mean, I know we all want D-Hop. I mean, that was kind of we're all hoping and praying for this entire offseason. But I think it comes down to a point where you eventually sometimes do have to cut a check, kind of like what the Chiefs did with Frank Clark, in order to help put you over the hump. Now, I'm not saying this wide receiver group will diminish, but I think there needs to be some sort of veteran leadership as a whole. And if there's no veteran leadership, then what's going to happen? Now, we know we have Kelsey on there, and that's great and all. But I feel like we need some other experienced wide receiver that is kind of known for. So last year, the Chiefs brought in MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 for the price of 1 whenever we saw that Tyreek Hill was left. I personally believe they can try to find someone. I, off the top of my head, do not know any of those free agent wide receivers that are so good. But I feel like if injuries hit this group, which I hope it doesn't, we could be in a situation where Mahomes is just running out there with random guys at a certain point. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they could do with guys like Cornell Powell, but he struggled to make the roster the past couple of years. Maybe they can do something like maybe have Jody Forson play a little bit of wide receiver in now different positions and packages. But it's a great point to bring up because if injuries start hitting this room, where's the veteran leadership? I mean, I think we're expecting a little bit too much out of guys such as Sky Moore in year 2 after what he just did in year 1. And I think we're putting a huge expectation on Rice, which I think he can get to. But I feel like in these great teams with these emerging wide receivers, like we see the Seahawks, they have those couple juggernaut guys, those guys in place that can help fix those issues.
Well, we do have Richie James, and he's right. I mean, Richie James is somewhat of a veteran. I mean, when you really consider it. He's not like a,
And I haven't watched much Richie James tape. It just, when I first saw the move, I'm like, well, I mean, this is great. I mean, obviously they see something, but I'm like, what if it doesn't pan out? I just feel like a couple times the Chiefs were able to do well specifically because of guys like Juju and MVS, the veteran leadership playing around the league a while was able to help them figure out what to do in certain situations. Yeah. One particular play when it came to Juju Smith-Schuster was a touchdown catch and run against the Bills. He knew how to keep scrambling. I'm not saying a Sky Moore or Rashee Rice will not be able to do that, but I feel like it may take him a little bit longer just to get over the hump again. And maybe that's me being too critical, but I just want to see the team kind of start off where they left off and continue to push the envelope. And maybe this is a year they continue to run the ball. You got 3 running backs. You got Pierce, who's showing like a beast. He can be used in the passing game. You got Pacheco. You got McKinnon. And if Clyde is there, you have another guy who does passing in the backfield. So there's options, but I think there's a chance the Chiefs kind of move a little bit more into the running game this year, possibly.
I don't know. I've yet to see Andy Reid go too deep into a running game in all of his years as a head coach, even when he was down a quarterback or two. I mean, a running back, a wide receiver or two. But who knows? I mean, he changed the envelope last year. He changed the I guess the painting. He painted a portrait last year that we didn't expect to see out of Mahomes. So you never know. I have a lot of faith in Mahomes, and I have a lot of faith in Nagy to get these guys ready to go. If Tony isn't ready to go week 1, and they do plan on doing what they plan on doing with Pacheco, and that's putting him on the snap count, for the first few games of the season. I don't see Clyde being here. I just don't see it happening. We have got a really good guy on the practice squad. Then we've got Deneric. We've got guys that can – Deneric's showing out right now. And then, of course, we've got McKinnon that everybody forgets about, So, I don't know, man. To me, I'm not too concerned right now. I like Phillips' argument about it. I mean, $13 million a year for one wide receiver that you don't know whether he's going to be able to do it or not in this system. Versus 3. I mean, we did it last year. We brought in a guy that.
But we brought 2 proven guys to help offset the Tyreek Hill.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But we also brought in 2 1-year guys in our system. First year guys.
MVS was a 3-year deal.
No, I'm saying their first year in our system.
Mm-hmm. But I have more faith in them who played in at least one organization with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So there's an expectation. Rodgers for MVS, and then Juju played with Big Ben. Yeah. So I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like they get caught in their stuck in their ways too.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
But I don't know. Who knows, man? Mm-hmm. What do you think, Quentin? You're being quiet over there. Are you taking a nap?
Well, here's the thing in the offense is that I do think that there was some importance to have that like veteran leadership. And I think last year when we were looking at this offense and we were thinking, what is this going to look like? We knew what a couple of these weapons were going to look like. We knew what MVS was going to be because he's been the exact same receiver since he came into the league. He has been a solid 650 to 700 yard receiver. I mean, it's actually crazy how consistent he's been throughout his entire career while playing in Green Bay and now here in Kansas City. So we could pretty much pencil in what he was going to get. We all were very comfortable with Juju Smith-Schuster coming into this system because we were like, okay, he's mostly a possession guy. He's a guy who can break some deeper stuff out, but he's a very heavy possession receiver. Great. That's the kind of guy I need in this system because other than Travis Kelce, I don't have that in my system. Now we've got he left, right? Juju left. He's now a Patriot. We still got that consistent guy, but I know that I need that 1,000-yard guy, that 1,000-yard wide receiver with Juju. And I'm just not sure where you're going to get it. I think the hope is that Sky Moore just takes a massive jump forward. From everybody that I've talked to, fans, just getting people's feelings on things, the consistency seems to think the consistency is that people are expecting Sky Moore to take a big step forward. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we almost have to start. And it's just, I'm a little uncomfortable putting a lot on a guy that was fine last year, right? I got nothing against what he did, what he didn't do. I just don't like putting my eggs in a basket to where I'm not so sure what I'm going to get in return.
It makes sense. It makes sense. The one good thing that we got going for us with Sky Moore is that he came out of college. It was one of the best route running receivers, and he dropped 1 pass in college. Mm-hmm. That's pretty damn strong. So I feel like we have that going for us. And the fact that he had an entire season of playing, winning a Super Bowl, and then an off season to learn the playbook, and then also working out with Mahomes helps a whole lot. I guess if we had any other coach, any other offensive coordinator, or any other quarterback, I'd be really concerned. But right now, I'm not as concerned as just simply because of what we did last year. And I know we had Juju, but we lost 1 wide receiver out of that bunch. And we still have MVS. We brought in some good wide receivers. We drafted really well. We still got a couple. And look, man, I think people are forgetting that we still have Jody Fortson. And
but
Jody steps up, man.
But here's the issue, though. And I like Jody Fortson. I think he can do a lot of great things, but I kind of expected him at this point to have a little bit more snap count overall to kind of solidify that tight end 2 position, or at least get some more steps on the field as wide receiver. I think he's great, JP. And I know we've had countless talks when we've been doing this show for a while. We've been beating the table for him to make the roster, and he finally did. And I can't wait to see what he can do. And yes, he showed him some big games, but I'm kind of curious to see, could he have more of an elaborate or bigger role this time around? What can he do? What can he do? And I think that's going to be very interesting because of all the stuff we've seen in the past. Jody has shown he gets some separation against those linebackers. Not Kelce, but he has some attributes, high pointing the ball, running, different things like that. We've seen over time where he's really shown like, hey, he can really do some stuff. So maybe this is the year we can see an elevation. Because the Chiefs have basically 13 different ways they can destroy a team pretty much every single game. And I'm curious to see if they add him more to the rotation and maybe Blake Bell gets cut or moved to that 3rd spot or whatever happens, maybe him and Noah Gray can kind of do a little bit more damage. But I do believe the offensive firepower, just in my opinion, and maybe Quentin agrees with me, is that it's dropped a little bit. I just feel like we got to pump the brakes on some of the expectations.
Wow, I actually kind of, yeah, he's not wrong.
I'm not wrong? Wait a
No,
minute.
no.
Oh,
Philip
man.
is not wrong.
I thought I was about to
You're
get a
not wrong
standing
either.
ovation.
I'm not saying you
Oh,
are.
man. That's okay. That's fine, JP.
No, I
That's
mean,
fine.
I agree with you.
I'm
It's
giving you a
one of
hard
those
time.
things to where you got to, anytime you
Mhm.
bring in rookies
Mhm.
and you're bringing in guys that are first year guys with the team, you got to have some kind of, I guess, thought process as to where they're
Mhm.
going to land and how well they're going to do.
Oh, it's
I
almost
agree with
yeah.
Philip when it comes to this. Jody does have the best hands of any Chiefs receiver right
But
now.
why is he not getting more snaps and getting
I think
key
it's just simply
situations?
because it's it's kind of similar to kind of like how Danny Shelton was last year when you don't really have a spot
But
for him.
those are two different situations. I still feel like you could have subbed out guys like Noah Gray, Blake Bell, and put in
Well, Blake
individuals
Bell,
such as
of
Jody
course, I
Fortson.
agree with Blake Bell.
I just think he's a sneak. You want to do a double tight end set, and you want him to go against a linebacker, he's going to shred some guys. And we've seen it happen time after time after time after time. So
Yeah, he needs to get more reps. There's no doubt about it. He's getting them in getting him in training camp right now. He's made some phenomenal catches in training camp so far. So, and what I like about, I just wanted to throw this out there really quick because this was brought up on that show last night that I did. They were talking about, one of the guys said, "Man, how can you go into camp with a bunch of nobodies?" And he was talking about the Chiefs and not be concerned. And I said, we went into last year, it was the same thing. We went into camp with a bunch of nobodies, with the exception of Juju Smith-Schuster, which nobody had real faith in when you talk about all of the talking media and, the talking heads in the media and everybody else saying he's this, he's that. He fell off after his first year. He had to have everybody else to make him great. I mean, it was all the storyline going into the season. But yet, we went in with 10 rookies, 7 active, and won the Super Bowl. So 7 active during the Super Bowl, I should say. So why is it that we can't do that again? We still have MVS. We still have guys that have been on this team for a while. We brought back Watson. There's just guys on the team that I think can almost make up for some of that production that we may lose with Juju. But again, it's just something you have to wait for and see. And also, remember, guys, we can easily, depending on, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but depending on what happens between tomorrow and just say over the weekend, there could be an instant signing of someone that, that can happen. Where I'm not saying, it can be some big name guy because Veach is not going to pay giant money for anybody big name right now unless it's somebody that really can fit within the system and not be a diva. But don't think it wouldn't happen if they feel like they need to have somebody else. And they're going to have Mahomes in that conversation. Do you feel like you need another wide receiver? Do you feel like these guys are going to be able to get you to another Super Bowl?
There are some guys available. Kind of looking at the list. I mean, the only notable guys are individuals like T.Y. Hilton. Looking at the top of the list, Kenny Holiday, Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, N'Keal Harry was a former first-round pick, or I think he might still be the Bears. So there are some options that could help. I would be in favor of Jarvis Landry.
Me too.
Just kind of what he's done in the past. N'Keal Harry is very interesting because he's kind of a pretty decent receiver. He did not work out with the Patriots. With the Bears, he did okay, and I believe it looks like he's a free agent. So maybe the Chiefs go that route. I mean, adding some more depth to our wide receiver room there could really help.
Yeah, and Jarvis Landry, if you guys remember, we considered him. Remember before he went to the Browns?
Yep.
We were talking about signing him, so he just inevitably went to the Browns for money. But maybe he's been sitting a while now on out in the street, so maybe he's ready to get out there and do something and win a ring. So I think he'd be a great option. I think he's humbled himself a lot since he got away from that ego fest that John Dorsey put together. So who knows? What do you think, Quentin? I know you're asleep back there.
I'm not. Well,
You're
I
the only
actually
guy I
have a
know that can
question-
sleep with your eyes
I have a
open. That
question
scares the
about
shit out of me, to
training
be
camp
honest with you.
tomorrow for you guys.
Okay.
Tomorrow is the first padded practice. So, is there a
Pads.
specific player or personnel group that you guys are going to pay attention to tomorrow watching for the padded practice? Personally,
Absolutely.
I want to focus on FAU Felix, just because he was injured, had off season. I think it was his thumb that he hurt late in the college last year. So I want to see how that's coming along. Plus, we're heading into the point where who's going to be that next young defensive lineman to step up. We know Karloftis played really well last year, and are we going to have that next guy? Is Felix going to be that next young defensive lineman to take the mantle and move forward? So I'm going to be watching Felix.
Caleb, I don't know about you, but we've been talking about it the entire show, and I'm going to be watching the wide receiver corps.
I know you're gonna be watching Justin Ross.
Damn right.
It's no surprise.
It's Justin Ross. It's Rashee Rice. I don't really need to watch so much of Sky Moore because I feel like he's got it. I really do.
Okay, that's fair.
It's these younger guys I want to watch in the pads, and look, that's what I was going to bring up really quick. Andy has been putting for the first week of non-padded training camp. He's been running pressures from the defense and the offensive side like it's preseason games. And he's doing that for a reason because he wants these guys to be ready to go. And he knows what he's got sitting in front of him. So I do think that that's something that we need to really – because I've never seen Andy put that kind of pressure on any wide receiver group since he's been with the Chiefs. I don't remember him putting that kind of pressure week one of training camp.
And maybe he sees something.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at the player, I want to see how they're going to do tomorrow in Paz is Pierce. The reason why is can he basically lay the hurting on guys like Pacheco did last year? If he can do that, then it's going to be safe to say the Chiefs have done it again. They've got another running back for cheap, and unfortunately, the idea of not paying the running backs is paying off. The reason why is Pierce has shown what he can do in shorts and a t-shirt, and Quentin loves to say he better be able to do it in shorts and a t-shirt. So let's see if he can do it in pads. And I think there's a very good chance he could do that because of the stuff he has done over time after time after time. Laying hits, running in the backfield, being a great pass catcher. I think there's a chance he may be better than Pacheco as a pass catcher from what we've seen. But it's been shorts and t-shirts, so we need to see what he can do in pads.
Hey, you know I'm right. When
You're not
guys
wrong.
should be able to look great in shorts and a t-shirt. If you're out there looking like, me out there running routes, then we got a problem.
Okay. Well, you know what? I can bring the football. We go run routes later. We can find a field.
Yeah, you can see my 5'7" 40.
5'7" 40.
Well, he's really giving himself some credit right there with that 5'7", but I mean,
He's faster than you. No,
he's got to be. Everybody's faster than me right now. But yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I mean, this is a season that it's a little bit. It's not worrisome. It's just something to think about. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't really worried since the 2018 season. I haven't had that worry. And I didn't really even have that worry last year when we dumped Tyreek. We talked about it on the show, and I wasn't concerned with it. And I'm still not really that concerned with it. I don't know why. I just don't feel like we're going to do something to. I guess the biggest thing is I don't feel like the Chiefs are going to do anything to damage Mahomes' career. I guess that's more why I feel the way I do, because I don't think they're going to make any decisions that would hamper his career in any aspect. And they haven't so far. If you really think about it, they haven't done anything to hamper his career. They've elevated it. Every year in and year out, his game is elevated, regardless of who we have out there and who he's throwing to. Quentin, you made a great analogy, last year at the end of the season, playoffs or Super Bowl, that he was at playoffs, actually, when we were down every starter that we had, basically. And he was throwing a ball to a guy that had more tackles than catches in the NFL.
Kemp. Yep.
Yeah, Marcus Kemp. So I don't know, brother. I just don't feel like we're
But
in that.
there's connection there with Kent. Has been there for like 5 years. There's
Yeah,
connection there.
that's
But
true.
I see your point.
Yeah. I mean, there's some connections. There was like 8 of them. 8 total connections. In his 5 years with Mahomes. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm just not as concerned as a lot of people are, and maybe I'm being too relaxed about it. I don't know. Um, I'm more concerned with Cincinnati and Burrow's Achilles than I am with the Chiefs and their wide receiver core,
Here's the
because
thing
that's
about the wide receiver core is that I think, in a pinch, you can get the Marcus Kemps of the world can come in a game and they can, you can play a quarter and a half with them and, put together a drive. My concern is if you have to do anything like that long term over multiple games, because you give defensive coordinators time to plan against, let's just be honest, with guys that are not as athletically gifted, then that's when you're going to run into some problems because you can out scheme some of those things. And my concern is that if you continue to bank on that for multiple weeks because of excessive injuries to your wide receiver core, that's when I have a problem.
Interesting.
Makes sense. It makes sense. But the one thing I will say is that veterans can get injured just as easily as rookies can, if not more. So maybe we're in a position to where we have so much depth in the wide receiver room that has had that's went through Pat Camp for the majority of them did, and went through OTAs, non-mandatory, mandatory walkthroughs. Now they're in training camp. They've been reading the playbook every day, every night. I don't know, man. I mean, maybe we're over analyzing it to a degree. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I do kind of have a question for you guys. This kind of segues our to the next topic. We see all these injuries are happening. When we see the injuries are happening, multiple people have brought up this is why Chris Jones decided to sit out. I'm just curious. Do you guys think that was the reason or possibly the reason? I know this is probably maybe overdone at this point, like beating the dead horse, but I think it brings a new layer to this because Chris Jones is under contract for a year. So I guess we're thinking year out help. But do you think that this is something that he maybe considered possibly when he decided to take his stance and not come into practice?
We've kind of brought this up.
Okay.
In some degree, we've kind of brought this up on earlier shows that, there's times that guys just don't want to do this for, whether it be for injury reasons or they just feel like they don't need to nearly as much. We talked about it Tuesday, actually, on this show. And that could very well be a reason that he didn't want to. You would think, though, that if that was the case, he would have done that maybe, during the padded times. But if you're, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could very well be a possibility.
I just wonder if this is going to hurt negotiation because if a deal isn't, because I feel like the only way he's going to come to camp is if a deal gets done. If a deal does not get done, he's like, well, I'm not going to risk it. You saw KFG has a torn meniscus. You see that guys like same thing happened with Jalen Ramsey. Same thing, JP. We see all these guys earlier getting hurt, and he's going to make the same argument. I think that could really hurt maybe team relations possibly. Because obviously we see one thing if they're not going to show up to camp and they're not going to say, oh, I'm tired, like Deshaun Watson, all that stuff happened. We don't need to go there. But it's basically sitting under the tent. I wonder if that's going to hurt team relations as a whole because they're trying to get better as a group. And obviously Chris Jones is the leader. So it's kind of like, what's going to happen?
I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
And I will say this is that it's in the player's best interest to come to the facility. Just because if something happens while he's at the facility, his injury guarantees are guaranteed. But if something happens when he's away from the facility, he's working out on his own time and he gets hurt, then, the team can null and void those injury guarantees. So if you're going to get hurt, do it at work. In terms of like how the team can come together, with Chris Jones not being there, I'm not concerned about it just because look, Chris Jones is playing for this team and this year, like that's happening. He's under
Yeah, no
contract.
matter what, it's happening.
So I know that this deal is going to get done. Is it taking longer than I thought it would? Yeah. I thought this deal was going to get done before the Friday before, so about a week ago now. But I'm still not concerned about it because Chris Jones is not going to sit out $28 million and not play this year. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, he's been fined, what, $250,000 at this point? He didn't get fined today because they didn't have practice today.
So $200,000.
But he'll get fined tomorrow. So
if he doesn't show up, if it didn't get, and that segues into one thing. I did hear that they expect something to be done by Friday, Saturday at the latest. So if that doesn't get done by Friday or Saturday, then I would start wondering if it's going to get done at all. And he's just going to play on whatever's cheaper, whether it be the franchise tag or his yearly. So, but that's what I did hear.
And look, according to the reporting that's out there, it seems like the total money of the contract has been agreed on. The discussions.
Oh my God, I can't get over this. Money. Isn't that crazy? Caleb?
Hold on. Let me finish this thought. Hold on.
Go ahead.
So yeah, so the money, it's just north 105 million seems to be the number that's been thrown around a lot. And the conversations between the team and the chief and Chris Jones has just been, what are the total fully guaranteed at the point of signing? If I remember correctly, 75 million is what Chris Jones camp wants, and obviously the Chiefs are not there. So we're probably talking about $10 million in guaranteed money. So at least it sounds like they're making progress on a deal, and it's not like they're that far away from signing something.
Well, we've been talking about this. I mean, we brought this up, 3 shows ago. That's exactly what we've been hearing, is that it wasn't anything to do with the yearly. It wasn't $30 million a year. It wasn't anything like that. It was the guaranteed money. And the original contract was about $10 million less than what, as far as fully guaranteed, is what he's asking for now. We've been talking about this on this show. Now all of a sudden everybody else is reporting it, but that's fine. It's $73 million is what I heard was he wants for fully guaranteed money. And that's what I've been saying on the show, and that's basically what he wants.
And I believe you, and my only frustration with the whole thing is that we see players all the time go out and basically expose fake sources. I'm just curious why Chris Jones didn't do it. Maybe there's an ulterior motive.
He never does.
No, he's done it before. He's went off for several people. And
yeah, but he doesn't go off on them when it comes to contract stuff. He never says a damn thing. The only one he stopped was a certain Chiefs outlet that decided to say he was being signed fairly quickly and laughed at him.
No, it's just one of the things where it just gets hard when trying to figure out what reports are true and what reports aren't. I know you've been right 100% of the time, plus 1,000 batting percentage. It's just when you look at some of these other things, I'm wondering, when you look at some of the people who are reporting, it's kind of like they have a history doing stuff one way. Do I really need to take what everything is saying to grade? And so I just feel like, I don't know, if I was a player, I would probably want people to know, at least understand where I'm coming from. But we're also in the game, and you've told me this before, players will just tweet stuff just to start stuff crazy.
Hell yeah, they do.
DeAndre Hopkins are going to comment on Chris Jones's post, making people like, oh, is he coming to Kansas City? Yeah. Or people like all the time, like Quentin could say, oh, I see I see John J. Hopkins over in Gladstone. Something crazy like that, or downtown, and people are like, oh, really? And then maybe that one person that decides, I'm going to drive around and go see if I can find him.
Who was that player where they said that they saw Brett Veach and him at a Five Guys?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't
who was that?
I don't remember what player that was, but it was just someone.
Was it OBJ or was it D-Hop? It was one of those two guys.
Maybe it was OBJ.
Maybe it was OBJ, but someone had taken a picture of Brett Veach at a Five Guys like years ago, and then they photoshopped the player in. And in their defense, it was a pretty good Photoshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one every time there's one where they always use I forgot what there was a player at the airport and they would use that in Kansas City all the time, like such and such a team, like that looks nothing like them. So
Yeah.
it's just the fun.
Well-
Where's whoever when they make that game? Like, oh, I saw him off of Truce, or I saw him at 18th of Vinyl.
Yeah.
He was at Arthur Bryant. I think we might need to turn that into a game, JP Quentin.
We
may
might.
need to
We
turn
might
it
have
into
to
a
do
game.
a
a
game
really
show.
weird game of Where's Waldo.
Yep.
Yeah. There you
Where's
go.
Hopkins, or where's the next
Oh,
free agent
God.
or guy we want to get? So
Yeah, I remember when Chris Jones was posting all those pictures with
Le'Veon.
Le'Veon Bell,
Yep.
and he didn't
that.
sign that year. And we'd said he wasn't going to sign that year, and he didn't. But it's kind of comical. Chris Jones loves to do that. He always has. A lot of the guys do. Chris Jones is like really good at it, though. He can really play it up well, and he does it with other players from other teams. And I think that's what really gets fans going is when he'll post a picture with a player from another team, and especially a player that's up for free agency or maybe a trade or whatever the case is. And he posts that picture with them down. Every player goes to Florida at some point during the offseason. It's just what they do. They go to Florida, they go to Cancun, they Hawaii. So you're going to run into somebody when you're there. You know when somebody else is going. It's just funny to watch these guys do it. But like Quentin said, Chris Jones is playing for this team. He's going to play to hit the best of his abilities, whether he's under contract for the 1 year or he's under an extension, on a long-term deal with us, which I feel like that's going to happen. So we'll just have to see. But, I don't know. This is not uncommon right now. Oh, by the way, Josh Jacobs, really quick, might as well bring this up, is nowhere near Las Vegas. Hasn't been for a while now. He actually left and got on a plane and said, I'm done. And he has not come back. So I don't know. And what from a couple of the reports that I've gotten here is that they don't expect him to come back. Okay. They're not expecting him to show back up and play for the Raiders.
So my question,
I don't know what their plan is with him.
So my question for you, because you probably explain this to everyone better, does he sit out a season? What happens? Does he get to play with another team? Because if he's not going to go back there, I mean, what is going to happen theoretically? Do you know?
He's got a couple of options. He can either sit out the season and then move on, which I don't think that's a great idea because we've seen that really hamper running backs.
It hurt Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, it killed Le'Veon Bell.
As much as it was, it really wasn't the right decision at that time. I agree 100% where it was coming from. Maybe if he was touched it out there one more year and maybe he said, well, you're going to put me on the pitch count or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that option. He's also has the option to, ask for a trade and ask for a release with – he could go three ways. He can ask for a trade. The trade can easily be, trade me to somebody else. And I'll give up this, I'll give up that, whatever the case is. Let my agents do their job. Maybe they'll get you somebody to fill in or that you guys may want. Or outright cut me, and I will forfeit whatever money I have coming to me, and we'll part ways that way.
Technically, he's not under contract. He hasn't signed his franchise tag yet.
No, but he's still –
it's like
actually, he's not. He's not
under contract. The Raiders
he's absolutely – you're right. He's not under contract. So right now –
he can be traded, actually.
Right.
Now he can be
first
traded.
Dibs on him to where he can't go sign with somewhat like another team. But it's like right now he's not getting fined by the NFL because he hasn't signed his franchise tag yet. So
that's absolutely true. And you're right. I keep forgetting that this is not his
fifth year.
Fifth year. So the options then change. So the Raiders can trade him now, or he can hold out, and then he's no longer when it's the time. You get to that point where you can't trade anymore. He's no longer a Raider. He's a free agent. Then he can do what he wants. So I know that there's been some talk going around about the coalition of running backs that decided to hold out for more money, and then the first one to cave kind of pissed everybody else off, which was Saquon Barkley. for a lousy 900 grand, or will end up being $1 million if you consider the really unattainable extra 150 grand that he gets. But so there's a lot of talk about that. So I don't know. I don't know, man. He's got a couple of options, but I guess he's lucky that he hasn't signed the franchise tag, and he's really lucky they didn't pick up his 5th-year option at the time. So
he's lucky that at this point they haven't rescinded that franchise tag because they can. They
I
can
don't know that.
They can just pull that away.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
Well,
signed
from what
it,
I understand,
so
they're probably going to. So
the team has every right to just pull that off the table. So look, it's $10 million. Is Josh Jacobs worth more than that? Yeah, probably. But is he going to get more than that somewhere else if he signed, if for some reason he's able to convince the Raiders to just outright rescind that money and he signs somewhere else? There's no way he's getting more money somewhere else. So
what makes you think that? You don't think somebody else would give him $11-12 million for the season?
No, because there are other running backs still out there.
If a team is desperate enough, yes. But I do feel like the most he's going to get is like $6 to $7 million. Just to the point where
getting
the season.
$10 million fully guaranteed.
I believe through the workload the team's going to put him through, I do believe he deserves $11 to $12 million. But where we're in the season, the only way that would happen is if a team starter who's very, very good goes down. That's where I can see it happening. But then again, it's like in a situation where if he doesn't get signed, it's kind of in the middle. It's like you got all these other running backs that are pretty good, and they'll be like basically trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I don't know really what's going to happen there as a whole. But I think I don't know. I mean, there's a good chance he could go somewhere. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get a lot of money that he wants. And I understand he wants stability. So
yeah, I mean, I understand the frustration because the point of the franchise tag is to buy yourself more time in the negotiation process. It's not to just, get dibs on somebody for a year and then deploy him out on the year. I think that's the biggest problem where, like when Kansas City used the franchise tag on Chris Jones years ago, right? It was just, we aren't going to have enough time within this stint to negotiate a contract, but we know we want you here long term. So let's give ourselves an extra month or so to work out a deal, and then we can all go on our way. Well, the way that these franchise tag works for running backs have been, it's just been, let's throw the franchise tag on and run him for another year, and that'll be it.
Mm-hmm.
Where guys like Josh Jacobs, I understand that, they want to be in the league for another, 2, 3, 4 years. So when they get a franchise tag thrown on them, their hands get tied.
It takes a year off their longevity in a lot of ways.
It does. And now it's $10 million, so it's fully guaranteed $10 million. I get that, but I understand where these guys are coming from. They want to be able to say, this is where my next paycheck is coming from for the next couple of years. So I understand.
I think what irked him the most, Quentin, is that I think what's bothering him the most is he does not like Jimmy G. And he doesn't like the scheme that they are putting together that he's not really going to be that much of a part of. And from what I understand, he doesn't like Jimmy G at all. But I feel like that's a huge part of it right there. It's not – he doesn't want to play for the Raiders. He doesn't want to play for that football team. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to play for him either. So not just because of the Raiders, it's the way they've done him and the way they beat him down. Well, they really, I mean, he's in phenomenal condition, but the way they've utilized him, I should say, for the money that they've utilized him for, and then not offered him really anything as far as a long-term deal. And I don't mean it doesn't have to be 5 years; it could be a 3-year deal. But they're not giving him any offers for anything.
And they haven't. They've literally thrown the franchise tag on him, and it just said, "Okay, sign this. We'll see you, when the camp starts." And I think that he is just one of these guys that's just trying to exercise his right to not sign that franchise tag. But it's a scary game because the Raiders could just say, "Never mind." They can pull that franchise tag away. Yeah. He hasn't signed it. Once he signs it, it's locked in. That $10 million is fully guaranteed. But you could miss out on $10 million here, and that's money you will never get back. because no.
Well, here's the thing too, though, Quentin. Some of these agents probably, especially like his agent, they may have already spoken with other football teams and said, "Hey, if he decides he doesn't want to play here and the Raiders rescind this franchise tag, would you give him this amount of money for this amount of time?" And they may have 3 or 4 commitments for that right now. I don't know too many guys that would lose out on 10 million. And in his position, especially, he's not even in the state. I mean, he's
gone
back. So I feel like maybe his agents have, some offers sitting there and just waiting for the Raiders to rescind it, so he can go out and get his bag. And if look, man, he may go to a contender that offers him $8 million a year with incentives. He gets to 12, and a contender. I mean, like a contending Super Bowl team. Whether he may think the Jets are, he may think Miami, the Bills, somebody that is a contender. Or you go to the NFC side, could be the Eagles. Who knows? But right now the Eagles are stacked. They picked up their,
running back.
Last night. They've got their running backs. They got one that they plan on using for mostly as a wide receiver, like a scat back. So I don't know. I mean, there's teams out there that would probably give him an incentive-based contract with a big signing bonus that would make up for that money, or he wouldn't be sitting out and losing $10 million.
But the Raiders is fully guaranteed. He doesn't have to do anything for it. He just signs that piece of paper and he gets $10 million because he's made $12 million in his career, which, is a good chunk of change. Don't get me wrong, but he can almost double that by signing that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Or if he goes anywhere else, that's not going to happen. And I also doubt that there's teams right now that have $10 million in open cap space that would sign him. Because, like I said, Dalvin Cook is out there. Kareem Hunt's out there. Like, there are other options for guys, and there's too much supply and not enough demand for running backs right now. He needs to just sign for his best interest. He just needs to sign that contract and make his $10 million. There are a lot of players in the NFL, specifically running backs, that would love to be making $10 million for the 2023 season.
Yeah. Well, he may look at, the deal that Saquon got and think, okay, well, he got $11 million and he was injured for a year and a half, and I haven't been. I carried this football team just like he carried the Giants last year. Why should I why should I take $10 million? Who knows, man? I mean, all I know is he's very unhappy with the organization. He does not want to play there.
Very clear.
And he does not want to come back. And like I said, the guys that I talked to here have said they've talked to him, and he has absolutely zero plans to come back to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Like to even visit right now. He wouldn't even come here. He'll go to Atlantic City before he comes here. So I don't know, man. It's a crazy situation. But I don't know. What else we got?
I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
Pads for tomorrow. So
pads for tomorrow. That's always a good thing. It's going to be a tale of some tape to see what happens moving forward. We'll see what happens with Chris Jones if he signs this weekend, like I've heard, or between now and this weekend, and we'll go from there. Hopefully he does. If not, we know we've got him for another year, and we know he's going to play his ass off because it's going to be his last year in Kansas City if he doesn't sign a deal now. Unless this is another situation similar to what happened in 19, where they say, okay, we're definitely going to sign you at the end of the season. We just got to get our money straight. But I know Veach wants that. He wants to clear that cap space. So I think that's going to help. That right there, they both need each other. I guess that's the biggest thing is they both need each other.
Yep.
There's a need on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So anyway, guys, we appreciate everybody for joining, and we will be back on Tuesday to talk some more football and see what actually goes on. Peace out, everybody.